Aladdin live action movie. These are just my general thoughts, non-spoilery, kind of giving you an idea how I felt about the movie. Maybe a couple comparisons to the animated film as well. If you want the spoilery stuff, you can just fast forward to the timestamp down below. I'll definitely give y'all a warning before I start going into the spoilery stuff. Okay, so I had like a lot of reluctance going to see this film at first because listening to the soundtrack, I was just kind of like,
no, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Soundtrack was kind of weak. I ain't even gonna lie. So I turned it on. You know, Will Smith is singing Arabian Nights. The way he's singing it is just in a way that it doesn't give you that feeling like it did when you watched the actual animated series. You know, when it came down to Minimum Sand, he sung One Jump Ahead. He plays Aladdin in the film. Aladdin is my favorite animated Disney movie. So when you get used to that, when you hear his rendition of One Jump Ahead, kind of comes off as flat, and it doesn't have like the excitement that, you know, it would have. And then I saw a clip of the genie singing A Friend Like Me, and I also saw Prince Ali, and I had to say I kind of went into the film kind of feeling disappointed before we even got to see it. Speechless was amazing when I heard it on the soundtrack. I thought Naomi Scott did a good job of killing that. I thought Zayn and Javaya did an okay job on their rendition of A Whole New World. It wasn't better than Peabo Bryson and Regina Bell's, of course, but it was actually pretty solid, you know, for what it was. I like the way they changed the beat up and everything. The Friend Like Me with DJ Khaled, that was just a Disney trying to be too hip thing. So my initial thoughts going into the movie, I didn't have high expectations for this film at all. This is my first live action Disney movie. I didn't watch Beauty and the Beast. I didn't watch Cinderella. I didn't watch any of that stuff. So the way they handled the different arcs for everybody this time, it's not just a movie about Aladdin. So it's definitely Genie has his own arc, Jasmine has her own arc, Aladdin has his own arc. It's a pretty safe film, I guess you can say. They kind of hit like most of the points from the Disney movie. But there were some things that changed that I thought were good, and there's some things that changed that I thought were bad. So just to kind of get to it, the way Jasmine and Aladdin meet is different from it happened in an animated movie. I like the way they moved it along on this a lot more better. It was done pretty well. When you first meet the genie, it was cool. Will Smith did a pretty good job. If I had to put a tag on it, it'd be pretty much the Fresh Prince Genie of Agrabah. You know, he's not acting like Robin Williams did at all. So if you're going in there expecting that, you're going to be extremely disappointed. Go in there thinking of Will's lightheartedness from his Instagram and from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air days, and you'll have a good idea of what you're going to get from Will Smith. And he's like more like a toned down, more mature genie, because the genie in the animated movie was a lot more, I guess you can say, goofy and immature for a majority of the movie. If you were a fan of Raja and Iago and Abu in the movie, I'm sad to say that you won't be happy with the way Iago is being done in this movie. He kind of just plays the role of a regular parrot. So Jafar, the guy that played Jafar, he kind of comes off more like a crazier lunatic Jafar than the Jafar that you get in the animated movie. I had a hard time adjusting to his voice because it didn't sound as intimidating as I'd expect for a character that's playing Jafar. The whole Prince Ali scene that they went through, I actually liked it. If you watch the clip on YouTube, you might look at it and be a little disappointed, but the way they handle it in the movie, I feel like they cut it off on YouTube exactly when it starts getting good. So when you're actually watching a movie, they did a really good job of making it seem really fun and interesting when it got to that part. The Cave of Wonder scene, I know I'm kind of jumping back and forth. The Cave of Wonder scene, I thought that was executed really well. It was done just as good as the animated series. I'd go on the limb and say it was done actually better. The whole meeting the magic carpet was a little on the whack side, but I do like the way they handled the Cave of Wonders in this because it gave you a better scope for the size of it as opposed to the animated movie, which just seemed like they were transitioning through scenes. Jasmine's arc and her independence in this movie is really dope. I like the way they handled that. Naomi Scott looked like a princess throughout the whole movie. The costumes that they handled were really dope. The dance sequences they added in this movie were really dope. It seemed like it was more some traditional Middle Eastern dances that was really welcome. They added a couple songs like, so Riff Raff Street Rat, I can't remember exactly the words that the title of the song is called, but but they had him kind of do like 2 other renditions of it throughout the movie. I could do without the other 2 renditions. Jasmine having a friend. Now, a lot of people going into the movie were disappointed because they thought this meant Raja wasn't going to be in the movie. I'd go as far as to say Raja was probably in this movie more than she was in an animated movie. But her friend Dahlia actually had a purpose for being in the movie, and she doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but when she does get it, you know, she's usually pretty much comic relief, and you know, she did her job pretty well. If you're looking for that over-the-top blockbustery feel that you get when you watch the animated movie, the only part that you really get that is the Friend Like Me Cave of Wonder scene, where they kind of went all out with the CGI and did some really cool things. Aside from that, the CGI seemed to have been kept pretty reserved. It wasn't used as much as I thought it was going to be used. I was glad to see Will Smith go back and forth from being Will Smith Genie to the regular Genie. That was actually done pretty well and pretty even across the board. The third act of the movie was done a lot more different than it was in an animated movie. I really liked the animated movie a lot more. The way they handled it in this movie was a little bit rushed, in a sense. Not rushed as in we don't got a lot of time to film this, rushed as in maybe some lazy writing and not finding a more clever way to do things. I like the animated version a lot better. If you want to hear more details of that, you probably want to listen to the more spoilery stuff towards the end. Overall, I thought the way they executed this movie was actually pretty decent. Like I said, Aladdin's my favorite movie, so I was expecting the ball to be dropped on this. I'm not even gonna lie. Naomi Scott was definitely the highlight of this movie. She killed it. Will Smith brought a different type of flavor to the Genie, so don't judge it off of the previews. You got to kind of see the whole movie, because he actually did a really cool down-to-earth job. Like it felt like the stuff that you see, like when Will Smith was on Red Table Talk and his Instagram and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's the Will Smith you're getting here. He seemed like he brought a nice energy to the movie. As far as Mena went, who's pretty much the star of the movie, I mean, if I had to call this, I'd call it Jasmine for real, because she killed this movie. But Mena, he was okay. He came off as a little shy at times, and I was a little disappointed by his shyness, because I was just like, he didn't have the charisma. I get it. You're supposed to be not necessarily believing in yourself, but Aladdin still had like a level of confidence that you don't really get from Mena in this movie. Overall, would I see the movie again? I might watch it one more time. After that, not really so much. There were like 3 or 4 parts where I actually got excited. It felt like the hair on my arms was standing up from stuff, because it was cool to see scenes actually done with real life characters. The parkour that Mena did with Aladdin seemed really cool. You know, he was all over the place. It was a pretty cool movie. You know, it definitely isn't the best thing that's happened. It's definitely not going to replace an animated movie. But as we were leaving the movie theater, it was cool to see like a lot of young kids being super giddy and excited about this movie. So, you know, should you take your kids to go see it? I think so. If your kids are young enough, they'll probably like it. If your kids are old enough to remember the animated movie, they're going to find parts of it to pick apart just like you probably would. But I definitely recommend, you know, you actually seeing it. Do you need to see it in a movie theater? Probably not. You could wait. By the time the Disney Plus streaming service comes out, this will probably be one of the first releases, so I'd expect to see this pretty early. So, spoiler alert. This is where we start getting into spoiler territory. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, you might want to cut the video off right now. So Jasmine and Aladdin meet in the marketplace in this movie, and I thought it was cool because the genie is actually, the free genie is leading the story, as opposed to in an animated movie it being the old guy that had the lamp that wasn't, you know, a genie lamp anymore. That was cool, but they never kind of came back to him at the end of the movie. So, but the way it starts with the genie talking about it, it kind of was cool, because I was just like, man, it's the free genie. He has kids, he has a wife. It was pretty predictable that his wife ended up being Dahlia at the beginning. I was pretty aware that like that was not hitting too well. I heard her voice sounded exactly the same the first time you hear her talking with Jasmine. But yeah, the fact that Aladdin and Jasmine met at the very beginning in the marketplace, I thought that was really cool. There was some little details that kind of irked me here and there, like the Cave of Wonders and him not having a golden beetle to open the Cave of Wonders. It would just open when they would show up. I thought that was really whack. Jasmine being there when he was singing One Jump Ahead was a welcome addition. It seemed almost like it was able to condense that portion of the movie a little bit. There were, like I said, little things like the apple off of the shoulder. That would have been really dope. I'm pretty sure y'all could have did that CGI. He could have practiced it a lot. Could have got one take nailed where he was doing that. Abu was a little disappointing throughout the majority of the movie. I thought it was really cool, the CGI, when you would see him grab him off of a ledge or something and put him on his shoulder or something like that. That looked really good. The whole him and Jasmine's conversation, they gave us a little bit more detail on both of their parents, which I thought was slightly interesting. Did I feel like I needed to know all of that? Not really, but it was still, you know, pretty cool. The fact that Aladdin snuck into the castle was actually a really dope scene. Like, I thought that was really cool, and it was really cool that that's how Jafar caught him. I thought the way that was executed was a lot better than them catching him at his house. That was really well done. You gotta, you know, kudos to the writers and the directors for finding that as a way to catch Aladdin. That was really dope. The Cave of Wonders, the scope of the Cave of Wonders was really dope, because you can see when they came in, they kind of got to walk down into this room, and then that's the Cave of Wonders. There's not gold all over the place. There's just jewels all over the rocks and everything like that, and the lamp is all the way at the top. I liked the way that looked a lot better than I liked the way it was done in the animated series. It really, in the animated movie, it really looked like a Cave of Wonders, in my opinion. That was really well done. You know, Jafar supposed to basically trying to help him get up out of the Cave of Wonders. At that part, I was a little disappointed with that whole interaction. You didn't get the feeling Abu swiped the lamp unless you saw the animated movie. Unlike you did in the animated movie, you just knew Abu had swiped it. When he rubbed the lamp, you know, Will Smith stretching and cracking jokes, that was actually really well done. The addition of somebody having to rub the lamp at the same time of making a wish kind of got rid of some of those, like, you know, when you watch some of the videos where people point out loopholes and stuff like that in Aladdin that never were explained. That makes sense that somebody would have to rub the lamp as they're talking. It was a little bit lazy, that the fact that, you know, the genie didn't watch Aladdin rub the lamp the first time, but you can argue that he had been in a lamp for 1,000 years, so he wasn't really on his P's and Q's like that. One of the other things that'll probably go unmentioned by a lot of people is the fact that they gave us a little bit of an idea of what Jafar had to do to actually become the Grand Vizier. The fact that he used to be like Aladdin, the way he stole, you know, Jasmine's hair thing from him as quick as he would steal things. I thought that was really dope, and we got to see it later on when he swiped the lamp in the alleyway. That was something that was really cool. That conversation with him and Aladdin before he went into Cave of Wonders was actually a really dope conversation, and it kind of helped plant the seeds of doubt that Genie was trying to reverse once they got out of the Cave of Wonders. The whole idea there being gray area, and the whole him replaying the wish to see if it really happened, that was actually, you know, that was a really nice touch. The Prince Ali up to the castle, man, that was really well done, man. They killed that, man. Will Smith killed it. I love when he kind of looked at the Sultan and it's like, we ain't gonna go until you say go. You know, it gave it like a whole new dynamic, you know what I'm saying? Like, Will Smith was like really the hype man of that joint, and that was a really cool scene. The whole interaction with Aladdin and Jasmine inside of the castle was hilarious. It was reminiscent of the animated movie, but there were a couple jokes here that probably adults probably would only catch, especially when Dahlia was trying to act like she was the princess and Jasmine was trying to act like Jasmine earlier in the movie. There was a little bit of an adult joke in there. The genie helping him with the dancing was really funny. The genie trying to push him to go talk to Jasmine was really funny. Whole new world scene, like, it didn't sound amazing, but it looked amazing. They executed that really well. Looked really nice. Them kind of sitting over and looking at people in Agrabah, because Jasmine just kind of wanted to be amongst the people. The way she kind of caught him, tripped him up. She still used a boo, but it was in a clever, a little decent way. I mean, I like the original way a little bit better just because it made more sense. Like, too bad Boo couldn't be here, you know, as opposed to, hey, is that a Boo? Look at that monkey down there. Is that a Boo? That was kind of cool. The whole throughout the whole movie, they kept pushing the idea of being yourself, and I mean, that's important in life, but I'm glad they kind of put a positive spin on that, with the genie continuously telling him that he was good enough, and at some point all the magic in the world wasn't going to help him if he didn't want to, you know, show his personality at some point. Once he saved them and they kind of confronted Jafar about everything, and Aladdin came out of nowhere. Like, the guy that was playing Jafar, he was acting his ass off. Like, he really was killing it at this point, but I just couldn't get, like I said, I couldn't get into the voice. His voice doesn't come off as intimidating. You know what I mean? Like I said, Yago was kind of disappointing throughout. The only time I thought he was actually somewhat interesting was he basically pointed out to Jafar that, you know, the diamond in the rough was entering the palace. Now, those were the only two Yago parts that I was okay with. Here it was just kind of like, whatever. He brought him the key, cool. And then Aladdin goes back to his house. This was kind of like a new aspect of the movie that didn't happen, but I like the way they had Jafar kind of like creep up, cover it up, and swipe the lamp from him. As he's singing a song, that's when he sees the genie's powers going off in the castle. I thought that was a really nice touch. The way Naomi Scott went into Speechless and they had all of the guards disappearing right here. This was like one of the most amazing scenes. This was one of those scenes where the hair on my arms was standing up. She was singing her butt off on this, and she had a tear that was just kind of coming down her eyes while you can tell she was really in that moment at that time, and that helped push that scene with her talking to Hakeem, the head of security. That whole scene was really cool. I like that as being a transition to going into being a sorcerer. That was actually really cool. This is where it kind of gets like, okay, they did the really big Iago as opposed to having a snake. Like, I really like the snake. I really like Jasmine being stuck in the hourglass, Roger kind of being turned into like a little cat. Like, all of that was completely gone. You know, Jafar kind of sent him, Aladdin, to the North Pole, Antarctica. It was cool because the genie kind of teleported the carpet there, so he was still helping out. I guess you can argue those were somewhat wishes, but when Aladdin got back, the way they convinced him to wish to be a genie, I thought that was kind of whack. I just like the way Aladdin was clever enough to do it in an animated series, because in this, the genie pretty much does it. He kind of like suggests to Aladdin to suggest to him. But I do want to say that when Jafar was looking like crazed and angry right here, he was killing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd really like to see him come back as the genie, where they're putting effects on his voice to make him sound like big and genie, like cosmic sounding. You know, that would be really cool. The whole happily ever after thing at the end of this movie, it was cool. I do like the way Jasmine kind of came out of the castle and was like, halt, your sultan demands it. Am I in trouble? Like, yeah, because you got caught. It was some exchange along those lines. That was a really cool exchange. The wedding was cool. It was cool to see the genie get his girl at the end of the movie, Dahlia. Their conversation was really dope, and it just tied back into the very beginning of the film. And then we end with a big dance off. Now, that was a really cool way to end the film. Naomi Scott was beatboxing. That was really cool. There's no end scene credit, so after that section of the movie, you can just get up and leave. That was pretty much the live action version of Aladdin, y'all. It was cool. It was fun. There were parts of the movie that I wish would have been a little bit different compared to the animated movie, but overall, man, it was a solid movie. I'd recommend it. I wouldn't watch it a whole bunch of times or anything like that. It's not like Avengers Endgame where you're gonna want to see it a lot to make sure you caught everything in Infinity War. But it's cool for what it was, so y'all go check it out. Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Dane Diddy from TRC Podcast, and that's my thoughts on Aladdin, the live action movie. You can follow me at TRC Podcast. You can hit me up on Twitter at TRC Podcast Live. You can follow the podcast, subscribe, let us know what y'all want us to do next. Hit us up. Make sure you follow my Voice with Derek and Friends podcast, Prince Trey John's Gaming World, Welcome to the Wall podcast, and check out everything we be doing, y'all. All right, y'all. Peace.